Hallelujah. Good afternoon, good evening, good night, good morning, good mid-morning, wherever you are, whomever you are. Welcome back to Voice in the Wilderness. Yeah, I don't know if how many of you have listened to our last what you call them, series. Are you ready? I hope that you did. I hope that you did in fact listen. I hope that it did in fact say something to you. I hope that it did in fact that you heard something that you could take with you and help you to live a life more godly, more God-fearing, more upright, more righteous life. Today we are beginning a new series. This one is this is interesting. And did I have the name? Power of okay. I think I came up with a name for this series, but I won't know until I post this video, right? And when I post the video, you'll see the name. I have it written down somewhere, but I didn't remember to find it, to have it in front of me. But it has everything to do with God, as we always focus on. God is our focus here. He's our life. He's our breadwinner. He's our giver. He's our taker. He's our every single thing. All right? We can do nothing without him. And he can do everything without us. So it's all about him. And I alluded to it at the end of the last session that we did. Are you ready? Did we the last session? Maybe during one of the sessions, but we alluded to it. The power of how God works in darkness. Not that he loved darkness, not that he is darkness, but the effect of darkness on God, which is it's minus, it's negative, 1,000,000, 2,000, quintillion, trillion, billion, incillion, if there's such a word and if there's such a number. In other words, darkness has no effect on God. Darkness affects things that surround God, right? Because as we know, God, when he came to Moses on the mount, he came in a thick cloud of darkness. And I know you, don't worry, we just started, okay? We just like 3.5 minutes in. So don't worry. But we are going to be focusing on the operations of God and how he works when we consider things dark, when things are dark, right? And we're going to start Genesis, obviously. You can't run from it. You can't hide from it. We're going to go back to Genesis chapter 1. And one of the things that I want to highlight right off the top is this. 6 times. Listen. More than 6 times, really. But 6 times the phrase, and there was evening and there was morning. Right? A period of time. Okay? Just parenthetically, I want to throw this out there. God operates outside of time. Time is something that we know about. But God operates outside of time. In other words, where God operates, there's no time. There's no limits, right? And Paul tries to describe that in his letters, right? To Galatians and He tries to explain to the people how God operates with regard to law, where a law is like a parameter, right? It's like a line. It's like a a box, if you will, a circle, however you want to think about it. But that's what a law is. And Paul was saying God operates outside of that. In other words, you ever hear the saying, "Don't box God in"? Right? It's like that. So God doesn't operate in boxes, right? God is the one who creates the boxes. God is the one who sets the boxes in place. God himself can operate in those boxes and out of those boxes. And he flows freely wherever he wills, wherever he wants, according to his own will. That's just how he is. Don't get mad, don't get upset, don't be pissed off, because you're not God. Okay? And that's a hindrance to us, not to him. Right? You can't box him in. Oh, okay, so God doesn't operate in the gambits of time. We see time. We understand time. We know time. Okay? And so what I'm saying to us is, if we read Genesis chapter 1, 6 times, and again, it's not only 6 times, but 6 specific times, the statement, there was evening and there was morning. It's a period of time. It doesn't matter where you are. If you could be in Europe right now, and it might be evening. It might be a period of time between evening and morning. But regardless of where you are on the globe, in the earth, that period of time from evening to morning is what we know as dark. It's dark during that time. Right? There is it's darkness. And that's what we're going to be talking about in these sessions. We're going to be talking about the power of God when it in darkness. And I phrase it as God does his best work in darkness. Right? And that's just me saying it. Right? So, as I said, when I post this teaching, I'm going to have the correct name, or the name that I think is, that comes to me, that is suitable for this session, right? Because we don't understand, right? When we call evil dark, that's dark, right? And we can allude to that, right? But we don't understand how God operates. We don't understand who God is. We don't know, right? And so a lot of times, darkness is there, but God is in the middle. And God is, he's setting things up, moving things around. He's fixing, he's building, he's shaping. In that darkness. That's how the world came to be. If we read the Genesis narrative, which we are going to read. Not the entire chapter, but the specific things related to darkness. And when darkness is there, where is God? See, God ain't scared of nothing. God ain't scared of no wicked, evil person out there. God He ain't scared of no devil, no demonic force. God ain't scared about none of that stuff. He's not. So when you know God and you know how he works, there's no reason for you to be scared either. You see what I'm saying? There's no need for you to be scared if you're walking with God. Right? If you're walking with God. Now there are people out there who think they're God and think they don't have to be afraid. Right? So there's that kind of fear where there's that fearlessness where I ain't scared of God. I am God. Right? And we know one famous person, according to the biblical narrative, known as Pharaoh. You know, in the narrative of the children of Israel in Egypt. Pharaoh wasn't scared. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't scared. At least according to the narrative. See, we don't know what goes on within a person, right? But that narrative gave us some good indications. We're not going to start there. We're not going to go there. But we're just going to indicate to us, right? That kind of fear that Pharaoh had was a kind of fear on the other side. That fearlessness, right? That is ungodly. And we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about that. But we want to talk about darkness. And where darkness is, God is, listen, darkness doesn't affect him. But he's right there in the middle of it, doing what he does best, right? I think in the book of Romans, Paul writes and says, where sin abounds, grace does much more abound. Well, wait a minute. We talking about darkness. What you talking about? Sin and grace. Oh, you catch it? You catch it? See, sin is a type of darkness. Sin, right? Because the wages of sin is what? Death. Death is darkness. So sin is the road to darkness. So sin is dark. Sin is not light. But Paul says, where sin abounds, where there is sin abounds, where there's a lot of sin abounding, where there is a lot of sin, great sin, huge amount of sin, where sin abounds, he says, grace doth or does much more abound. And I will attribute grace to life. I would attribute grace to God. I would attribute grace to light. So, when we talk about darkness, people start to get worried. Oh, what's he going to talk about? Demonic forces? I didn't talk about demonic forces. I'm talking about any aspect or all aspects of darkness, things that could be considered dark, okay? Even the wickedness that people do. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about how God is operating in these things. Genesis chapter 1. We're going to start verse 1. Right? In the beginning. Again, that's the beginning means it gives the connotation that we count in time, right? Beginning. It's something begins. It's a time frame. We immediately begin to begin. We immediately think of time, right? Like, when was that beginning? When was it? So people, researchers and scholars started to think about what time, what year, what time, how long. All those words are synonyms and acronyms to what? Time. But remember, I said God does not necessarily operate in time. Time is in him, but he doesn't necessarily operate in time as we know it. Right? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was formless and void. Right? Now remember, I said 6 times in the book of Genesis is the phrase, there was evening and there was morning, which denotes time, a span of time. Okay? Because remember, we're talking about how God operates in darkness, right? God is not afraid of the dark. God works in the dark. And we'll begin to see and understand why. The earth was formless and empty. Formless and empty is a type of darkness. Something that doesn't have form, it is empty. That thing is, from a human perspective, that thing is existing in darkness, right? So for us, everything has to have form, and everything has to have something, has to contain something. Think about that for a second, right? And then the writer goes on to say, darkness, where did darkness come from? You think about it. Darkness was on the surface of the deep. And here's the kicker. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. So it's interesting here that the writer is moving from darkness was on the surface of the deep, but the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the water. The deep and the water seems to be different entities. I beg to differ. I think the deep and the water that's one and the same entity. And the writer is just calling the deep in a different way, right? The deep means the water, where the water, and you know the water is funny in terms of the oceans, right? And you know we talk about the heights of the earth, right? And the highest peaks of the earth, highest mountains on the earth. Well, there's parts of the water, there's parts of the oceans that's the depth is higher, is deeper than the highest mountain, right? Which means that there's greater depth in the water than there is on the earth. Think about that. So, immediately, we see that word, that darkness. Darkness was on the surface of the deep. Where does the darkness come from? Right? And we are going to look at that in all seriousness. We're going to look at it. We're going to talk about it. 1 session, 2, 3, I don't know. But we're going to talk about it until we begin to understand that no matter how dark it is outside, no matter how dark it is around you, no matter where you are, God is, or he can be. Do you know that? Are you aware of that? that God's hand is not short, that it cannot save, neither is his ear heavy, that it cannot hear. And if you are in the pit, in the deepest of the dark, that means God's hand isn't short. God could reach his hand down there and pull you up. Or if you cry out to God from the depths of the darkness, God's ear, his ears isn't heavy, that he cannot hear. The question is, do you know that God is there? Do you know that he will hear you? Do you know? Do you understand that he can reach you? See, this is the kind of hope God extends to humanity. This is the kind of hope he extends. And he's extending it even before humanity is born. Even before the birth of humanity, he's making these statements. Darkness was on the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God. See? And the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the water. So, right off the top, the first thing we have to understand is who God is. God is light, life, light, okay? So bright, so brilliant that you can see him with the naked eye. You can't look at him. God is like that torch that they use for welding. You can't just look at a torch with your naked eye. You ought to put on some sunglasses. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? The glasses that the welders wear is dark. Oh gosh, listen. You gotta love it. You have to. God is so bright. Right? He is so brilliant that in order to see him, he gotta cover himself in darkness. Or he gotta put a darkness around your eyes, like he told Moses. What did he tell Moses? He said, hey, I can show you my glory. Because I'm telling you, you ain't gonna be able to see that, Moses. But here's what I'll do. I'll put you in the cleft of the rock. I'll stick you in the cleft of the rock where it's dark. And then I'll pass by. See? Because if you see me with your naked eye, you'll just melt into nothing. You will just, I don't know, turn into a cup of water or something. You are going to disappear, disintegrate. We have to understand who God is. We have to understand God is not a man. We have to understand the power, the significance. We have to understand who we are dealing with. We can't, right? Because we are in this finite mind. And God is infinite. Everything about us is definite or definite. You know that word? It's defined, right? It's in a parameter. Everything about us. Everything about God, everything about the things that he created. Remember in one of my sessions, I said, and I say it a lot, right? But everything in creation has boundaries. Everything in creation has limits. Everything in creation is governed, is ruled. It's run by a statute, a law. Every single thing in gravity, the laws of physics and all these things. And we know these things. Some of us more than others. Some of us better than others. We know them and we interact with them every day. We drive cars, we ride bicycles, we go uphill, we throw balls up in the air and they come back down. Right? We interact with these laws every single day. And yet still, there are some of us who try to deny God. Yet still, some of us try to allude to there is no God. Well, Solomon said, according to the proverb, the fool, he is the one who says in his heart, there is no God. You out there and you're an atheist? You don't believe in God? You don't believe that God exists, but you believe something. Okay? I'm going to break it down for you. You in darkness because you believe there is no God. But you believe that there is no God. You believe that. Right? You think that. You entertain that thought. You hold that high in your mind, in your heart, in your esteem. You hold on to that. There's no God. There's no God. Listen, Mr. Atheist, Mrs. Atheist, just the fact that you believe that, just that alone proves that God exists. Because without God, there is no belief system. You can't believe anything. Oh, gosh. I know it's hard. I know. I know it's hard for you to think that. Okay? But you have to understand. You have to understand. You weren't here before the beginning. Did you hear that? You weren't here before the beginning. Your father wasn't here. Your grandfather wasn't here. Your great-great-grandfather wasn't here. Your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather wasn't here. None of your family was here. And if you think your family is the apes and the monkeys, them wasn't here either. So, before the beginning, there was nothing. But God was. We just read it. Because for something to begin, anything to begin, you have to begin. But for something to talk about the beginning, that thing had to be there before the beginning to know where the beginning began. Oh, God! Listen! Oh! Think about it. So this person, the writer of this document, the book of Genesis, he wasn't there in the beginning. So He had to get information from somebody who was there before the beginning to tell him when the beginning began. Oh, God. Oh, man. I don't know. Let's move on, because I'm telling you right now, that right there. Oh, man, that's crazy. But what I'm saying to you is this. If you don't believe in God, if you can't understand that there is a God, I challenge you to examine where you get your information from. Where you get your information from. Who is the person? Who is the entity that is feeding you this information that there is no God? Because I'm just telling you no. I'm just letting you know right now. You ain't just pluck it from thin air. Okay? No, you didn't. No, you didn't just pluck it from thin air. Somebody said something, you heard it, you felt it make so much sense. Something happened to you that whatever you heard, it just aligned itself, and you just gave yourself to that. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. You know why I can say that? Because the devil, right? The devil, if you think about it, it is written that the devil knows that there is a God. He knows that there is a God. Okay? And if the devil, if he is, let's say, the anti-God, if he is against God completely and absolutely and totally, but he knows there is a God. If he, who we as human beings consider to be the darkest of dark, he is like darkness itself. If darkness know that there is light, then he's probably not so foolish. Because he knows. He becomes a fool when he decides, even though I know that there is a God, I'm going to just go along with the idea that God doesn't exist. That no matter what you say, preacher, no matter what you say, neighbor, no matter what you say about God, I am just not going to believe it. I am going to think about something else. I'm going to deny the existence of this God as long as I live. I'm going to go down in more darkness, knowing that I want to deny this idea, even though that I may very well know that there is a God. And that person, that entity, Solomon calls a fool. Doesn't matter how rich you are. It doesn't matter how poor you are. Doesn't matter where you are in the middle. Doesn't matter how strong you think you are. Doesn't matter how mighty and powerful you think you are. Solomon still calls you a fool because you said in your heart that there is no God. Right here in the first chapter of Genesis, before we even get to there was evening and morning, before we get to that period of darkness, the period that we know is always dark, the period that we call nighttime, right? Even though we as human beings understand that that period, evening and morning, is darkness, is nighttime, before that is even mentioned, as soon as darkness is mentioned, right next to darkness, or on the cusp of darkness being mentioned, is also mentioned God. It's also mentioned light. It's also mentioned in something pertaining to God. Because God is light, life, light. Anything to do with the opposite of what darkness is. So in verse 2 of the first chapter of the book of Genesis, it clearly shows that darkness was there in the beginning. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and empty, which is, as I've alluded to, is a form of darkness. And then it goes on to clearly state that darkness was on the surface of the deep. And then it goes on to clearly say, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the deep. So, they're not far apart. Darkness and God. You know, and you'll hear people say, oh, God ain't had nothing to do with your sin, and God is as far from your sin as you are, and or as not as you are, but God, listen. God understands, in order for me to grab a hold of the sinner, in order for me to hear the sinner, I have to be close to him. Right? And so God has the ability to go wherever he chooses to go. He also has the ability to not be affected by things that he don't have to be affected by. Death doesn't affect God, right? But when Yeshua died, what happened? What happened? Come on. Come on, what happened? Death thought he won. Death said, got him. Yes! Had him in a neck hole, had him in a neck lock. Pinned him down to the coffin. He was wrapped in swaddling clothes. Pinned him down. He was embalmed. 3 days and 3 nights. He was dead. But what happened? What happened, people? You know the story. And for those of you who believe the story, those of you who believe the narrative, you know what happened. Right? He rose up. Okay, what? He just tapped death on the shoulder and be like, yo, let me go. Where you going? Not remember last week we talked about in the closing session of the series, Are You Ready? We talked about Jacob and Jacob's fight with the angel, with God, right? We talked about that entity that Jacob was wrestling with. And Jacob had the entity in a neck, in a lock. And Jacob told the angel, I'm not letting go until you bless me. The angel had to get up. He had to go. Because the day was breaking. The dawn, the light was coming. And for whatever the reason, the angel wasn't allowed to be where he was in the light in the daytime. So he tell Jacob, he said, yo, let me go, man. I gotta bounce. Jacob was like, I ain't letting you go until you bless me, bro. He said, what's your name? We talked about that. So yeah, they nailed Yeshua to the cross. He died. They wrapped him in the linen cloth. They buried him. Put a big stone over the tomb so nobody could come and steal the body. Yet, with all of that said and done, 3 days, when death thought that he won, 3 days, and how the writer of the letter put it, oh death, where is your sting? It's like, yo, I gotta go, man. I can't stay here forever. You can't. I gotta bounce. And he just tapped Death on the shoulder like, hey, I gotta go. Death said, okay, man, ain't nothing I can do. Oh gosh. Death said, nothing I can do, bro. Go your way. You can go your own way. And Yeshua got up. And we know the narrative. So, what's the purpose of darkness? What's the big deal? What is this thing about darkness that seems to be so airy or scary or whatever? Listen. I'm not saying that darkness doesn't exist. Oh, there's darkness out there. And there's people who do darkness. There's people who perform darkness. There's people who do some stuff. Okay? And there's some dark people out there. I'm not talking about the African American. I'm not talking about the dark-skinned people. I'm talking about people who do wickedness, which is considered dark. Evil, which is also considered dark. People who are unrighteous, which is a form of darkness. People who are against God, which is also living in darkness. And all those things. Yeah. People who think they God, that's a form of darkness. All these things. Right? It's darkness. But I'm letting you know, okay? Where is God in this verse? Where is he? He is hovering over the darkness. He's looking at the darkness and saying, what in the world is going on now? You better move, bro. You better get out the way. And the thing is, to me, right? The writer says, the earth was without form and it was empty or void. Void means there's nothing there. Right? And that's, I don't know. Okay? I wasn't there. But to say something is void, that there's nothing there, it's a big statement. Right? And then he continues, the darkness was on the surface of the deep, but the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. So if you break it down, if you bring it to some semblance of reality, right? It's that the earth is there, then the darkness was hovering over the surface of the deep, right? And then the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the darkness, right? So it's one layer, and then another layer, and then God is over everything. which he is over everything. And when you think about it, and for me, when I look at it, and so if I'm looking at God looking down at everything, I'm asking myself, what is he looking at? Or we can ask another question, what is he looking for? You understand what I'm saying? Because he's over and he's looking. The Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the water. So God is over stuff and he's looking. What is he looking for? What is he looking at? Right? Why is he looking? How is he looking? Okay? All these are legitimate questions. And the next statement goes as follows. And God said. And God said. So you have the formless and void space. You have this darkness hovering over here. And then you have God hovering over the darkness. Right? And I'm alluding to God looking down. Okay, God is looking into the darkness. He's like, okay, what is God? What is he looking at? What is he looking for? Why is he looking at it? Something's getting ready to happen because it's God, right? Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. And all these words, all these things that we know, God is there. So what is he? Is he looking at something? Is he looking for something? I think he's looking for something. Right? I think he's looking at something. Why? Because I think he's getting ready to do something. And he does something by saying something. Think about that. And God said, let there be light. Wait a second. I thought he is light. I thought he is light, right? Because there are writings that say God is light. You know, you listen to people who had this near-death experience or a death experience, or people who have had some kind of encounter with God. They always say, all of them always say, it was this big bright light. And God said, let there be light. Why is he saying let there be light? Why is God saying let there be light? That's a question. It's a legitimate question. If he is light, why is he saying let there be light? Who is he saying it to? Who is he speaking to? Is he speaking to himself? Is he? Because remember, the earth, formless and void, the spirit of darkness is hovering over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God is hovering over the surface of the water. Right? So you have these three things in hope. Maybe I'm just putting it like this, people. Don't take my word for it. I wasn't there. I don't know. I'm just trying to bring it into a place where we could see something. We could get some kind of a glimmer of an answer to what God was doing. The purpose is that when you think about darkness, you don't think about God. The way we think, right? We think darkness is an entity that operates without God. That God is nowhere around. That God lets darkness be, and darkness could do what darkness wants to do. And so darkness is some kind of entity that roams the countryside free and do what it wants to do. And I'm saying to us, that's not so. I'm saying to us, that's not so. When we read parts of the book of Revelation, we see these words, and power was given to it, and power was given to them, and power was given to him, and power was given, and power was given. Here's my question. Who has all this power to be given? Whoever it is just given power. Just who is that has all this power to just now? I'll give you some power. Okay, hey, you want some power? Okay, here's a little bit. Who has all this power? I also want us to understand God is real. God is real. Don't be fooled. God is not mocked. You can't mock God. Right? So if you insist on believing that there is no God, I am going to insist that, according to the Proverbs, you foolish. And I'm trying to get you away from being foolish. I'm trying to get us to this place where we begin to believe that God exists. And where God exists, we begin to believe that God wants us to exist in a certain way. He wants us to be a certain way. He wants us to exist in the parameters that he has provided for us. Why? Because we are his creation, created in Yeshua towards good works. He created us for a purpose, for us to be able to do good works, to take care of the garden, to toil and to take care of the garden, to keep and to take care of the garden, to love your brother, to love your wife, the children, to love your neighbor, right? To love your fellow man as you love yourself. To think about good things, to think about upright things, and to anything that has any kind of virtue, to think on those things. Not on hatred and how you could dominate the next person, and how you could be a bully to the next person, and how you could be a god. Right? I was listening to a podcast some time ago, and they was talking about George Soros and how he made a claim that one of his goals in life was to obtain the God status. And the person who was doing the podcast said, you could Google it. And I Googled it. And he was like, yeah, that was something that I was entertaining, but I think I'm there now. I think I can achieve that. So now it's on to the next mission. Really? 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 How foolish can you be? That you're a human being and you think you can be a God. And you think that you are God. Really? So God, who is over everything, who is in all things, he is all things to all, in all, by all, for all. That's who God is. Nobody could stop him. Nobody could be him. Okay? And like the writers have said, there is none like him. So you can fool yourself all you want, sir, ma'am. God said, let there be light. Why is God calling light? Why is God calling light? And all kinds of things I'm hearing in my heart. Why is he calling light? God has been calling light from day one. Deep has been calling to deep from day one. As iron sharpeneth iron, so shall a man sharpen his brother. From day one, he's been calling to the light. Is there light in you? God is calling that light forward. God is calling to the light, not because there is no light. God is calling to the light to let the light know you can't hide in darkness. See? You can't, the light cannot hide in darkness. Or you could say it in a different way. The darkness cannot hide the light. Yeshua in the Gospels say it another way, right? He said, you are the light of the world. A lamp that is lit is not lit to be put under the bed or under a bushel or under anything. A light is not meant to be covered. Think about that for a second. Because if you put a candle or if you put a lamp under a bed or under a box, something to hide it, right? What you have in effect done is you have taken the darkness and covered, you put it over the light, right? Now, chemically and scientifically, we know that that's one of the ways you extinguish fires. You see, you didn't know that. Because fire is a form of light, right? Fire is a chemical reaction, right? With the evolution of heat and light. That's what a fire is. That's what combustion is, right? So in order to extinguish that fire, you cover it. You damp it down with lots and lots of water, which in essence is a way of covering it, right? You cover the heat index by soaking it, drenching it with tons and tons of water. And eventually the heat, it goes down and down and down and down, and the heat dissipates and the heat is gone. And so if combustion is a chemical reaction that evolves heat and light, if you take away heat, then you can't get no light, because the heat and the light go together. Oh man, I know. I was a firefighter, so that's why I could talk like that. I know just a little bit from my recollection, right? And if you take a candle, right? You know, we have all these beautiful candles in Walmart and Kmart and all these. Well, I don't know if they have any more Kmarts, but Target and all these stores that they sell these beautiful candles, right? If you take a candle and you light it, Jesus says you don't light a candle to put it under anything, right? You light a candle to put it above. Because when you put it above, the light just, little light. You know the song, This Little Light of Mine? I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Well, in essence, that's what God is saying. That's what God is saying to the light. Hey, you can't stay there forever, bro. I need you to be. Why? Because the dark, the formless and the voidity of the earth is covering the light. And the darkness shows up and decides to put more cover on the light. And God is over the darkness looking down. God seeing the light. God is like, that ain't how it's supposed to be, bro. No, sir. Oh, you notice that I created a word, voidity? Oh, God, you're stupid. I'm talking to myself. I'm not saying you're stupid. I'm talking to myself. I say I'm stupid. The formlessness of the earth, the voidity of the earth, or the voidness of the earth, if those two things are words, those forms of darkness. And here comes darkness himself, hovering over the surface of the deep, making it even more dark. And God says, the captain, bro. Yo, remember Yeshua in the tomb? Hey, I can't stay here, man. 3 days is up and I gotta go. Oh, God. My time is up, bro. You know how the old folks used to say, you can't keep a good man down. You know, the proverb say, mark the upright man. Right? And then Proverbs, the psalmist, I think, says, the footsteps of a good man are ordered by God. Though he falls, he shall not be utterly cast down. For the Lord will uphold him with the righteousness of his right hand. So there's something about goodness. There's something about light. There's something about God that you cannot hold back, that you cannot hold down. You can't hide him. You can't destroy him. You can't cover him up. You cannot deny him forever. It is impossible. There's something about God that is going to squeeze through the tiniest, littlest, minutest hole and come out at you and be like, yo, time is up, bro. I gotta go. I got to get up out of here. God says, let there be light. And guess what? What you think happened? If, talking to all the people who know God, all the people who know about God, if God says, let there be light, what do you think is the next thing that will take place? If you don't know what is the next thing that takes place, what do you think the next thing that would take place be? What do you think that would be? I think it would be exactly what the writer says took place. That God said, let there be light. And what do you think would happen? Light came forward. Light didn't fight. Light didn't fuss. Light didn't argue. Who's you? Why are you calling me? I'm not interested, sir. I don't want to hear you. You don't even exist. Light just responded. And the writer says, and the light was, and there was light. And God saw the light. God looked in the mirror. God saw himself. And God saw that the light was good. And God saw that the light was good. You're doing anything, you need light. Even if you're doing it in the daytime, you need light. Light is necessary. If you're doing things and you don't have any light, those things are not going to be good. Just saying. And God divided the light from the darkness. Another interesting statement. Well, why you call that interesting? That's not strange. It's very strange. Why is it strange? Because typically, I'm talking about normal living. If you, in the nighttime, if you go home and your house is pitch black because there's no lights on, right? The moment you flick the switch in the living room, what happens? The living room that was just dark is now well lit, right? And I've alluded to this in many other sessions, right? The moment light appears, darkness disappears. But where does the darkness go? Right? The darkness is not far off. Darkness just disappears, but it goes hovering over somewhere where there is no light. That's what happens to darkness. Where the light is, the darkness doesn't come there. It goes where there's more darkness. It goes where there is no light. That's why I said, if you're trying to do something good, you have to have light. Light in your thoughts, light in your actions, light in your motives. You have to have light. If you don't, those things are not good. Right? So if you're helping somebody and you're being selfish, you're only going to promote yourself, or you're helping the people with the idea that you want to promote yourself, or your motives are dark, then the things that you do, though they look good, are dark. They are bad. It's just how it is. Why does God have to divide the light from the darkness? He makes a distinction here. This is what he does. He makes a distinction because darkness must know he cannot integrate himself with light. And light must know he cannot integrate himself with darkness. They're like oil and water. Put them in a blender. Put them in what do you call that machine? That mixes things together. You put them in the blender and you and you spin them, and it looks like, oh, they become one, right? It looks like the oil and the water is mixed. It looks like the oil and the water is one. It just looked like that. But stop the machine from spinning and set the blender aside for 1, 2, 3 days. Oh, God, I love it. Oh, gosh. And pretty soon, the oil will tap the water and be like, gotta go, bro. You can't keep me here. I gotta go. It's been 3 days. I gotta go. I hope you caught that. I hope you caught that. Oh, man, this thing is good. This thing is good. But God saw it fit to divide, to make a distinction, right? That's what dividing is, okay? You there, you here. I'm distinguishing between light and darkness. And to further distinguish between light and darkness, verse 5, it says, God called the light day. And God called the darkness night. So light, day, God, good, they're on one side. Night, dark, evil, bad, they're on the other side. And the twain, and nowhere the twain shall meet and integrate and be one. They shall forever be separate. And that's the key principle about God. It's the key fundamental principle about God. We talked about it last week. A good tree, cannot bear evil fruit. An evil tree cannot bear good fruit. Right? So you either make the good tree evil, or you make the evil tree good. But the rule is a good tree cannot bear evil fruit. And so if somebody is producing evil fruit, then we have to ascertain that that person is evil. Because a tree is known by its fruit. I know this is going to cut across many, it's going to cut the grain, cause the grain of many people. Right? But you cannot be doing evil things under the guise of being a good person. Doesn't work. It doesn't work. You cannot be a good person and do evil things under the guise that you're an evil person. See, a good person ought not or cannot do evil things. Neither can an evil person do good things. It just does not go that way. But human beings insist on, we insist that anything we decide to do can be done. And God keeps telling us it cannot. It cannot. Sir, ma'am, if you are doing evil things, I'm talking about in the sight of God. I'm not talking about what a man considers evil, because as you know, we live in the world today where men consider evil things as good and they consider good things as evil. So I want you to understand right off the bat, make it categorically clear that the standard for good is what God says is the standard for good. And the standard for evil is what God calls the standard for evil. And the two or the twain shall in no wise ever meet and be integrated. It just cannot happen. You read through the Gospels, Yeshua continuously is contending with the Pharisees, with the Sadducees, with people who don't understand this principle, with people who don't understand this law, with people who don't understand, but yet think they understand. They think they know, but they don't. So God is clearly defining, remember that word, define, okay? It's opposite infine. When something is infinite, it's infinite. It's infinite. It is what's the word? Perpetuity. It operates in perpetuity. It just goes on and on forever. Right? When something is defined, that thing is defined. It's definite. It's put in parameters. And so God makes a distinction between light and darkness, night and day, good and evil. He makes the distinction. Not I, not you, not your pastor, not your reverend, not the apostle, not the prophet, the pastor, the teacher, not Moses. God did. God does. Right? And here's the statement, ladies and gentlemen. Here is the statement. And God said, sorry, not God said, I'm skipping. Here's the statement. After God called it light day and the darkness night, the writer says, there was evening and there was morning. That was the first day. evening and morning. Ladies and gentlemen, throughout history, there are things that we as human beings understood. And the one thing that we as human beings understood was that the period of time between evening and morning is called night time. It's called nighttime. And in the nighttime, darkness exists. In the nighttime is where it's dark. In the nighttime is where darkness spends all of its time, or most of its time. In the night time. And that is where we get the topic. God does his best work at night, when it's darkest, where sin abounds, grace doth much more abound. When things are bad, when things are at their worst, God is still working. Okay? So God is a God of hope. He's a God of light. There might be darkness all around him, but that darkness serves a purpose. Okay? The darkness serves a purpose. Something just went off in my head. What, you may ask? Well, I just thought about that statement. The purpose of darkness. Maybe the purpose of darkness is to bring forth the light. Maybe that might be the title of this session. The purpose of darkness is to bring forth the light. Is to let the light know that the darkness cannot hold it back. Is to let the darkness know that the darkness cannot reign forever. The light reigns over the darkness, because when it's dark, the light exists. And when it's light, the light still exists. So the light reigns in light, and it reigns in darkness. Things that make you go, So, if you're in our life today, right? If you exist today, I want you to know that God exists. That God is real. That God is true. That God is searching. Scripture says that he goes to and fro in the earth, searching for those who are calling to him. In the beginning of the session, I made the statement, which is a quote from Scripture. Scripture says that God's hand is not short that he cannot save, neither is his ear heavy that he cannot hear. Okay? And so God exists in the earth, in the midst of the darkness, because He is searching for someone who will cry out to him. See, because with God, there is no pleasure in the death of the sinner. There is no pleasure. God is not smiling. God is not pleased. Matter of fact, he might be the opposite. When the wicked person dies, God probably smacking his lip and saying, I missed that one. God is probably mad. Like, I lost that one. I'm not saying that's what God is. I'm not saying that's what he is or how he reacts. I'm just saying, if he's not pleased in the death of a sinner or in the death of a wicked person, then if he's not pleased, then it's very possible for him to be upset. And that means if he's upset that a sinner died, that means he's really concerned about those of us who are still alive. Even if we are alive in our sin, he's really concerned. His heart is really heavy, and he's really making every effort to reach out and save us. And so, as I alluded to, it's important for us to know our part so that we could be of some kind of service to God. Because remember, he put the man and the woman in the garden to till it and to take care of it. Okay? He didn't give Jacob the birthright to beat Esau down, to destroy Esau. He gave Jacob the birthright because he saw in Jacob a person who would care more about the birthright, who would care more about procuring that birthright, who would take time and effort and energy in understanding the birthright and in understanding the power of that birthright, right? And that he would use that power to help his brother, all right? To draw his brother, to lure his brother, if you will, to God. Listen, brother, I know you're out there. I want you to know I love you. I want you to know I care about you. I want you to know that God, who has given me this birthright, cares about you. And he wants me to reach out to you. See? That's the power of light. That's the power of the birthright. Esau didn't care about the birthright. As I said, that he said, what is this birthright to me? This birthright can't give me no food. I'm dying here, bro. I'm hungry. And all Esau saw was the darkness that he was in. That's all he saw. And he didn't care about the light of having the birthright, holding the birthright in high esteem. Didn't care about that thought. What the heck is this to me? This is nothing. I'm hungry, bro. I'm dying. Okay, I'm going to give you that birthright. Give me some of that porridge. See, We saw so much of us are fixated on the demonic, on the devil. Everything is the devil, that's the, yeah, it could be. What are you doing about it? What are your part? What are you doing about it? Are you shining your light? Are you shining your light? Is God saying to you, let there be light? Are you hearing those words? Is it evening and is it morning where you are? I'm just saying. That was the first segment in this series titled The Power of Darkness. You know, what's that? It's the song. What's that, Elton John? Is that not Elton? The sound of darkness. The sound of, silence. Okay, that's not darkness. That's silence. Okay, all right. Okay, my bad. I was going to Google it. So it's the sound of silence. Think about that for a second. The sound of silence. All right. Oh, almost closed out before going to my closing place. We will pick this up next week. Same time, same channel. Tune in. Turn your Bibles to Numbers chapter 6, verse 22 through 27. As we read, as I endeavor to bestow upon you a blessing, I can say that I don't know if I am a descendant of Aaron. And I'm saying I don't know because I don't know. I shouldn't say that I am not because I don't know. But nonetheless, I normally close my sessions with this beautiful, powerful words. Powerful words. If you haven't heard, then I encourage you to turn your Bibles to Numbers chapter 6 and verse 22 through 27. We are going to read, and I encourage you to listen. Listen to these words, okay? And Jehovah spoke to Moses, saying, speak to Aaron and to his sons, saying, this is how you shall bless the children of Israel. You shall tell them, Jehovah bless you and keep you. Jehovah make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. Jehovah lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. So they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I will bless them. In the meantime, until next time, Shavua Tov, Shabbat Shalom, Arrivederci, Dashvadanya, Dankasha, Adios, Bonne nuit, Shalom, Dios te bendiga, buenos días, buenos tardes, buenas noches, bye, peace, deuces. out. Till next time.